Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the comprehensive yet informal, as always, study of Kant's critique of pure reason. Um, yeah, we're here. I'm Matt, and Pat and Mark are also here. We're going to be tackling more of the transcendental analytic today, which is going over basically just the pure understanding, the functions of it. We're going to be touching on some pure concepts today, or categories as
we're in the analytic of concepts.
Yes, and this also, if all goes as planned, we will reach this part right here today, which is the end of the first chapter of the Transcendental Analytic.
The first chapter is titled "On the Clue to the Discovery of the Pure Concepts of the Understanding."
So we will.
I want to just try to read the whole title here.
Yeah.
Critique of pure reason. Hold on.
Doctrine of elements or some shit, right?
Yeah, doctrine of elements. Doctrine of elements, transcendental logic, transcendental analytic, book 1, analytic of concepts, chapter 1, on the clue to the discovery of all the pure concepts of understanding.
So that is the full-length title, if we are not mistaken, of this chapter.
And of course, within that, we have the third section on the pure concepts of the understanding of the categories.
Yes, which is section 10, which is where we are right now, and we're going to be picking up too. So yeah, that's some classic Kantian organization for you, and it's going to stay like that as far as I'm aware for the rest of the book. I don't think it gets too much simpler, if that. I can only imagine it getting more complicated, if anything, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, this has been tackling the pure understanding as a faculty of the mind. We've been going previously over types of judgments because the function of the understanding, at least as we've investigated it up to this point, is to make unified judgments, and the unification is kind of the criterion for knowing whether or not you've completed your journey in finding what the judgments are. Otherwise, Kant says you have to go through each thing, and then you would never have certainty.
Right.
Of
to be clear, as we're reviewing, judgments are unified under various moments. He calls them.
Yes.
Right. So each judgment is a unity of certain representations. The unity of representing diverse representations under a single one, I believe, is his verbiage.
Yes.
And they can be there are 4 titles and 3 moments for each title of that, which was the table we saw earlier.
And that I have right here. Yep. So that's what you're looking at. So we went through that, and if you want more detail on that, you can just look at our last study for all the detail on that. And this is all the detail that we went over, and then we ended it, and now we're here and moving on from the function of the understanding with judgments to pure concepts of the understanding, or categories. So that's where we're at now. That's where we came from. Does anybody have any more preliminary remarks before we begin this section?
Not I.
All good, Mark?
Your screen is not shared. If
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you wanted it shared, because last time you had the PDF. I can share it if you'd like.
Oh, I mean, I have the PDF open. It's just we're starting from A84, right?
No. B102. It's also, there's A77 is around that same area.
B1. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. B102.
Yeah, the third section.
Okay. Yeah.
A77 is like in the middle of that.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. On the pure concepts of the understanding or categories. So cool. You're in the right spot.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Cool. Yeah. Well, so if you don't have any questions, I think we can get going. I guess I can start reading. All right. Here we go. As has already been frequently said, general logic abstracts from all content. Great start. Of cognition, and expects that representations will be given to it from elsewhere, wherever this may be, in order for it to transform them into concepts analytically. Transcendental logic, on the contrary, has a manifold of sensibility that lies before it a priori, which the transcendental aesthetic has offered to it in order to provide the pure concepts of the understanding with a matter, without which they would be without any content, thus completely empty. Now space and time contain a manifold of pure a priori intuition, but belong nonetheless among the conditions of the receptivity of our mind, under which alone it can receive representations of objects, and thus they must always also affect the concept of these objects. Only the spontaneity of our thought requires that this manifold first be gone through, taken up, and combined in a certain way in order for a cognition to be made out of it. I call this action synthesis. So that paragraph was mostly review, but it led up to this important notion of synthesis, which, as you can, we're going to go more into it. It looks like in just a second, but
that, and I think it helped clarify this transcendental versus general logic distinction that we've been sort of grappling with. This idea that transcendental logic deals inherently with the manifold of a priori intuition, and the idea that the transcendental logic comes first. General logic is an abstraction from transcendental logic in the order of experience. Right. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why we're abstracting away from the pure a priori intuitions, which have to.
In general logic, which is not what we're doing right now.
Yes, exactly. We're doing something else. Dealing with the spontaneity, as he says. And spontaneity does something cool called synthesis. So which, as he says, spontaneity of our thought must be gone through, taken up, and combined in a certain way. So we're going to look at how cognitions are combined, basically, and we're going to go into more detail on that now. Do you want to read the next paragraph?
Sure. By synthesis, in the most general sense, however, I understand the action of putting together different representations, or putting different representations together with each other, and comprehending their manifoldness in one cognition. Such a synthesis is pure if the manifold is given not empirically, but a priori, as is that in space and time. Prior to all analysis of our representations, these must first be given, and no concept can arise analytically as far as the content is concerned. The synthesis of the manifold, however, whether it be given empirically or a priori, first brings forth a cognition, which to be sure may initially be raw and confused, and thus in need of analysis, yet the synthesis alone is that which properly collects the elements for cognition and unifies them into a certain content. It is therefore the first thing to which I have to attend if we wish to judge about the first origin of our cognition. Okay. So interestingly, he's saying that synthetic cognitions, whether a priori or empirical, are prior to analytical ones, right? In the order of our experience, right? I cannot analyze anything if the cognition does not first exist.
Yes, and the cognition is made through the synthesis.
Synthesis of a manifold, right? Synthesis of a manifold of intuition. So a manifold, I'm not sure we've touched too much on this, but...
We have a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, the manifold is that intuition before it is organized in any kind of way. It's diverse, sort of chaotic, no unity, no judgments. So Kant says that we comprehend the manifoldness in one cognition. In other words, we order representations, right, under a single cognition. Right, that is that unification he talked about earlier. And that's synthesis. But without any synthetic cognition, analytic cognition isn't even possible. So the synthetic cognition is therefore prior, in time and logically prior.
Yes, therefore the first thing to which we have to attend, yes.
Right. And I think, I'm not sure if you would say that empirical or a priori synthesis, I don't know which one he would say is first in the order of time, but in order of logical priority, synthesis of a priori cognition is most important.
Yep. Cool, I think that's pretty straightforward, at least with that explanation. Mark, do you have any questions about that?
No, so basically he's stating the reason why synthesis is first is because it's synthesis which that analyzes that like raw manifold and tries to unify them into
Well, he wouldn't
a singular
use the word
cognition.
analyze.
He would say
Because-
combine.
Because to analyze is to basically take apart what you already have. And
So I mean, yes, synthesize.
yes, to combine, yes.
And so in this context, the manifold is just all the like raw data, right? Which is
Yes.
Yeah, just
Given to us.
the intuitions basically that are not yet like cognized.
Which can be the empirical intuitions of
Yeah.
like everyday experience, or pure intuitions, namely those of space and time.
space and time. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yep,
Cool.
that makes sense.
Awesome. And just so you know, too, you might want to like do whatever you did in your mic before, just because it's a little
Yeah,
yeah, a little weird again.
the thing came back.
Yeah, the noise.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. All right. Looks like we all understand that. Mark, do you want to read the next little paragraph that begins with synthesis in general? Unless you were still
Sure,
messing
I
with your
mean,
microphone.
is my microphone?
It's still a
Is
little.
my microphone not working?
It's still making the noise. Yeah. I mean, I can still hear you. It's just a little like distorted. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay. For this session, I don't have to read. I'll get it checked out. The mic. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah. No.
Feel free to still ask questions, though. Obviously, if you need to understand, it's not that big of a deal. So.
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right, I guess I will continue then. Synthesis in general is, as we shall subsequently see, the mere effect of the imagination, of a blind though indispensable function of the soul, without which we would have no cognition at all, but of which we are seldom even conscious. Yet to bring the synthesis to concepts is a function that pertains to the understanding, and by means of which it first provides cognition in the proper sense. So synthesis. This is kind of like what we were talking about yesterday. Synthesis
Yeah,
is
this is very interesting.
yeah, it's an effect of the imagination,
Yeah.
which I think he has to go into that more, and he probably will a little later.
Well, but the first idea is simply this idea of putting intuitions together generally, and it doesn't require any kind of conscious act to do so.
yeah, so it's not like active imagination, I guess. It's different from that.
But then the conscious combination of those, where the synthesis. So there's a synthesis that happens first, where the manifold is put together, and as it were represented as like one in some way, but the way in which it is one, and the way in which it is unified, has to be put under the heading of a concept in order to be cognition properly.
Yeah,
That's
we bring the synthesis
pretty-
to concepts.
Yeah, I know that's pretty abstract, definitely for the people who like might be following along at home. But the idea, I mean, if you take like the flashes of color that would allow you to see a cat, right?
Mhm.
You would have to first synthesize them together, and then to properly cognize the cat, to properly have a thought about the cat, you would have to have a concept
Of a cat.
of the cat.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to have those things together,
And
generally,
another thing to have the concept
and
as
another
well,
thing to have the concept as
and to
well.
bring that combined thing under
Right.
the concept.
Right.
So this is it's still the same process of like combining concepts and intuitions. It's just we're getting a little more into like the details of it and the like it's not just a simple like 1-2 combination. It's like there's like a sub combination, maybe you could think of it as, of the intuitions. And then which is kind of the process we're going over now, and then you tie that with the already, which is the concept you have of the cat, and then you tie that newly cognized bundle of intuitions to that concept. So
Now, to be fair, I'm not sure if this is true. When I think of the combination of the various manifolds that make up a cat,
mhm.
right? Kant would say that first I unify them in some way, and then I have the concept of, unity, for example. The idea that the cat is a substance, all those concepts. I don't think that's necessarily true. Like, why are those two different acts?
Because for Kant, I guess they're so separated, so you need an additional right? Because, well, so this is the weird thing, is that he begins it, right, with making intuitions and concepts like completely different things that like don't. But then in this combination, now we see the understanding working on the intuitions to combine them, but then we also tie them to the concept. So you would think that it's like once they're combined in the intuitions, the concept is already like there.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well,
Because
it seems so.
I agree. Yeah.
Because there's two faculties, right? There's
Mhm.
the faculty of sensibility and the faculty of the understanding.
Yes.
Where does the synthesis lie? In the faculty of the sensibility or the faculty of the understanding?
So
If it lies in the sensibility, it has to be given to us.
Well, it doesn't.
But the
For
synthesis is the unity. So it's
But it's of the
obviously
understanding.
from
It's on the
But if it's from
yes.
the understanding is the faculty of concept.
Yes.
So it should already be
I
under
agree,
a concept.
but I think he like still feels the need to like make an additional connection because he
An
does think
additional
there's
step that exists somewhere between the two only things he said exist in our mind.
Yeah, it's weird because
It's very strange to me.
yeah, it is strange. I agree. But I just think his motivation for doing it is trying to still keep them separate, even though like the understanding very clearly has like the dominant role when you look at like the.
So I don't know why we don't just go from manifold to synthesis under a certain concept, but apparently we don't. Apparently we get synthesis in general and then synthesis under a certain concept.
Very strange. But that's kind of how it works. Cool. Any questions about that, Mark?
You there?
Oh, no questions.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
All right. Do you want to read the next paragraph? The now pure synthesis generally represented.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Now, pure synthesis, generally represented, yields the pure concept of the understanding. I see. So, well, maybe this synthesis in general is an abstraction rather than something that really exists.
Okay.
Because this talks about pure synthesis generally represented
Yeah.
is the pure concept of the understanding. Hegel would call this a notion because it's not really spelled out what that is.
Yeah, it's kind of a vague.
Yeah. So, by this synthesis, however, I understand that which rests on a ground of synthetic unity a priori. Thus, our counting, as is especially noticeable in the case of larger numbers, is a synthesis in accordance with concepts, since it takes place in accordance with a common ground of unity, e.g. the decad, 10.
Yes.
Yeah. Under this concept, there is therefore the synthesis of, under this concept, therefore, the synthesis of the manifold becomes necessary.
So this is part of the interesting thing about Kant, and we're like, you know, the synthetic a priori, it's kind of weird because the examples he gave, like even all the way back in the introduction, were like kind of strange. We're like, is mathematics really synthetic a priori, or are these other things, you know, really some of the he has really questionable view where like there needs to be a natural science division of natural sciences that consists purely like synthetic a priori. So he had some really controversial like just I guess maybe more surface level examples, but the necessity of synthetic a priori I think really starts to emerge around this section where we see synthesis and necessary combination of manifold.
Right. I mean, it seems to be. So if you take a look at the mind of a child who can count only up to 10,
Mm-hmm.
for example, right? Their idea of unity for counting is 10
Mm-hmm.
because that's their maximum.
Yeah.
It's a number from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
So there's a community, therefore, of numbers from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And each representation
Is an instance of the unity.
is an instance of that unity of the community of numbers from 1 through 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so only by being unified under some kind of concept, only through that synthesis, is it possible to count and therefore to add.
Yep.
So I think even though this isn't like a discursive argument for the idea that mathematics is synthetic rather than analytic, it is a rather persuasive account
Yeah.
of what it looks like for mathematics to be synthetic.
Which you realize when you attend to your faculties.
Yeah,
and
I know. He told us just attend to your faculty.
Well, at least he's explaining it now.
A little bit more, yeah. It's not a knockdown argument, though.
No, definitely not. More just of a demonstration, which is fairly. I don't want to say subjective. I think it's a little more. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
It's not apodictic.
No, yeah, it's not apodictic. That's a good way to describe it, I guess. Cool. All right, I guess I will read the next paragraph then. If since Mark's microphone is, he wants to check it out later. All right, different representations are brought under one concept analytically, a business treated by general logic. Transcendental logic, however, teaches us how to bring under concepts not the representations, but the pure synthesis of representations. The first thing that must be given to us a priori for the cognition of all objects is the manifold of pure intuition. The synthesis of this manifold by means of the imagination is the second thing, but it still does not yield cognition. The concepts that give this pure synthesis unity and that consists solely in the representation of this necessary synthetic unity are the third thing necessary for cognition of an object that comes before us, and they depend on the understanding. Okay, so Kant's given us like the three-part laydown of how the
I just definitely don't understand where this second step comes in.
Yeah.
Why can't we just have a manifold and then unify it under concepts?
He's just saying this is how it works. I don't see any more arguments. Maybe more will come later. I don't know. He tends to like work backwards sometimes. I think he like makes these claims and then yeah. So I just kind of hope he will.
I remember asking this exact same question the first time I read it. Now that I'm getting back to it, I was like, why?
Yeah.
What does the imagination do? It sounds like it's just an extra step that doesn't do anything.
Did Lee have any? Did you ask this to Lee or?
Yeah, he wasn't super helpful on this.
Oh, okay. Maybe we could ask him again. Maybe he has some more understanding after a few years of more of a Kantian contemplation. I don't know. And/or research, and/or teaching. But okay. Well, I guess we'll just put a question mark on that for now. Okay. Is there anything else in there? That's pretty much it, right?
There is something else in there.
Well, there's the third thing, yeah.
No, transcendental logic, however, teaches us not how to bring under concepts, not the representations, but the pure synthesis of the representations. Is that just saying that there's no particular subject?
How to bring under concepts, not the reps. Yes, it's kind of the general process of synthesis versus like not the representations themselves, yeah. Because the representations themselves is kind of assuming, right? Once you have the representations, Okay. So you're just kind of backtracking and being like, kind of like what transcendental is, right? How is X possible? That's kind of the transcendental mindset.
Okay.
Sigma transcendental grindset. How is this shit possible? So in this case, it's pure synthesis of representations. All right. Cool.
Sorry. Elaborates. Refuses to elaborate.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the transcendental grind set.
Yeah. The Kantian one, anyway.
The transcendental Kantian grind set elaborates, refuses
to elaborate upon elaborations.
Yeah.
Unless he does later, we'll find out. But for now, yeah, there's a seem refusal. Okay. Who just read that one? I already forget.
Me.
Okay, so I can read the next one. Or Mark, is this all making sense to you so far? Any questions before we move on? Just want to check.
Yeah, I'm taking notes.
Okay.
Do we have like a document or something that we could like share? Maybe
we don't.
But that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like oppose that at all. You can totally share a document.
Okay, yeah.
If you like.
I'll share it after today. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Is there anything on there you want to like touch on like that brought up right now specifically, or is that just like a general thing?
He says representations versus the pure synthesis of representations.
Yes.
So representations is the actual like empirical like content, right?
Not
then,
necessarily empirical, but yes, it is like
content one way or another.
yes, it is the like finished, combined, cognized content. That is a representation. And
okay, so it doesn't have to necessarily be empirical.
no, it can be a pure representation.
Right. For instance, a mathematical
such as
representation.
Okay, no, and then that's to bring that under one concept analytically. That's the role of general logic, and then.
Yeah, I think it says something.
General logic. The role of general logic is to. So general logic, the content of general logic is to talk about the principles of correct judgment in general, abstracting from all content. So in other words, when you go to logic, that's general logic. If you take a logic course that teaches you correct rules of thinking, that is general logic.
And then transcendental logic, on the other hand, is
that's like
not concerned with.
No, it's
it
concerned.
Doesn't abstract from experience. It abstracts from particular contents of experience, but not from the underlying conditions of experience in general.
In fact, that is what it is investigating.
It's specifically concerned with the underlying. Right. So, for instance, general logic is non-temporal. Which is why metaphysicians have run into so many problems talking about time, like when they try to use logic. For instance,
analytic philosophy currently heads up. If you're an analytic philosopher right now, please.
So it seems to be a contradiction to say like anything in the past is true because does the past continue to exist? No, but that's because general logic doesn't have anything to do with space or time, especially time. It's especially evident for time, right? General logic. If I say Socrates is a man, right? That's a non-temporal statement. So it abstracts from the conditions of our existence, including time and space, most notably time and space. But also the concept of what he calls apperception, which is the unity of time and space that exists, right?
I mean, yeah.
So general logic abstracts from all content, like all content of thought, and instead deals with general rules of truth or falsity of judgments in accordance with the principles of like non-contradiction. But transcendental logic talks about how logical concepts can actually exist in an actual human experience.
Which includes the intuitions of space and time.
Right.
And just anything received in general.
Right, and the conditions of the human mind as a general rule. It doesn't deal with any particular subject, like general logic, not a representation, but it does deal with the subject, as in the subject of the mind. Mm-hmm. The subject of experience in general. Does that make sense?
In transcendental logic, it doesn't abstract all of the contents from thought.
It abstracts the specific contents, i.e. any given representation, any empirical representation. Yeah. But it doesn't abstract the general contents.
No, it deals with general like what is the nature of representation? What is the nature of experience? What is the like and how are these things possible? That's what transcendental logic is investigating, and for that it needs to understand both faculties. One being the receptive one, sensibility, and the other one, the understanding, which is spontaneous.
Understand.
So transcendental logic deals with both of these. And transcendental aesthetic deals with specifically the receptive, intuition, sensibility.
But transcendental logic has to be informed by.
Yes, so there's some interplay there, but generally transcendental logic is focused on the pure understanding, which obviously has some.
Is only operational.
Yes.
On pure intuition.
Yes, so it's like they're not completely separate, but it focuses in on the understanding as much as it can while still having that foundation that the transcendental aesthetic provides. So that's a little in depth, but hopefully that makes some sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right, I'm glad. And we can go over that more like later if you like, but we should probably move on if you
Okay.
have a basic enough grasp of that. Okay. So I think we're on the last paragraph, right, of this
Yes.
page. And you read the one before that, right?
I forgot.
Uh, yes, I think I'm reading this one. Okay. And then, all right, cool. The same function that gives unity to different representations in a judgment also gives unity to the mere synthesis of different representations in an intuition, which, expressed generally, is called the pure concept of understanding. The same understanding, therefore, and indeed by means of the very same actions through which it brings the logical form of judgment into concepts, by means of the analytical unity, also brings the transcendental contents into its representation, by means of the synthetic unity of the manifold and intuition in general, on account of which they are called pure concepts of the understanding that pertain to objects a priori. Even this can never be accomplished by general logic. Okay, so I'm gonna back up a little bit because there's a lot of
I don't really know what happened there.
yeah, but we got a new thing.
The same function that gives unity to different representations in judgment also gives unity to the mere synthesis of different
Right,
representations in an intuition. What
So
does
we
that
don't
mean?
so we don't only synthesize judgments, we synthesize intuitions, which we kind of talked about. Yeah, so that's just review, right? Which expressed generally called the pure concept of an oh no, that's the new thing I think. The pure concept of the understanding.
So hold on.
So
The
that
same function gives unity to the different representations in a judgment. Also gives unity to the mere synthesis of different. How is it called a synthesis if it doesn't already have unity? Right? So he's talking about the second clause here
yeah.
deals with the imagination. Right? The mere synthesis
Yes.
of different representations is what he called imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he says that this same function that gives unity to it,
Uh-huh.
namely the synthesis according to a concept, right? He says that this same function that gives unity to different representations according to a concept in a judgment also gives you that unity to the synthesis of different representations in an intuition.
Yes.
How does that make any sense? Synthesis is the unification, right? He says the action earlier on in the last page, he says, by synthesis in the most general sense, however, I understand the action of putting different representations together with each other and comprehending their manifoldness in one cognition. How is that not unity?
I'm a little confused. It is unity.
Okay. But he's saying, right,
Mm-hmm.
the first clause of this sentence here.
Yes. The
Says the
unity of
same
representations in a judgment.
He's saying that the same function that gives
Yes.
unity to different representations in a judgment.
Mm-hmm.
That is what he's talking about with the third sentence, the last sentence of the paragraph before. Right? The third part of bringing different representations together. There.
The concept that gives us or the third thing.
Right? First you need
Yeah.
the manifold,
Uh-huh.
then the synthesis of the manifold,
Uh-huh.
and then you need to provide
Yeah.
that synthesis
With
with
a concept.
Yeah.
Unity under a concept. And then he
But how is it a synthesis if it doesn't already have unity?
because that's what the synthesis is. It gives the thing that doesn't have unity.
No, but that's not what he's saying.
It's not.
He says, first there is the synthesis, and then we give the pure
shit.
synthesis unity. What the
Oh
hell
no
does
no
that
no no
mean?
no no no. So okay I see now. So this is the confusion from last time. It's not fully unified. This is what I meant about you kind of think of it as like a sub synthesis, or I forget
I
the
don't think
exact.
that's clear.
I think it is because he paints it out in a 3-step process.
But how is it not fully unified but partially unified? What does that mean?
It means that the combination of intuitions happened, but it wasn't brought under a concept yet.
If it's combined, if you combine two things, that is a synonym of unify.
But it's not brought under a concept yet. In Kant's thing, I agree. By that point, it probably would be a concept, but for some reason,
he says contradictorily, right? He's just saying that Comprehending their manifoldness in one cognition, right? That is synthesis. He defines synthesis as the action of putting different representations together with each other and comprehending their manifoldness in one cognition.
Yes, that's asynthesis, but for Kant there are multiple
But
of them
one
happening.
cognition is a unity.
So I guess it's not a maybe there. I don't know. I guess it's not a full unity then. I don't know.
How? In what way?
I don't know how it works. That's just what he's saying though. Like
It
at least to
doesn't
me,
make sense.
like that's just what he's saying. I don't know.
The mere synthesis without unity, even though it's comprehended in one single cognition, it somehow doesn't have unity. It needs to be given unity.
through an
I mean,
additional
this is
concept.
the same point I've been making over and over.
Yeah, that's
again,
what I'm
basically,
saying. Yeah.
Yes, but it just keeps coming up.
Yeah.
How on earth? What is this middle step? Where does it come from?
Well, there is, I guess, and the thing that does both.
First, you put them together. Then you make them one thing.
Yes, under a concept.
What is what?
Yeah, I don't agree, but that's what he's saying. So we'll
Move on.
roll with it, I guess, as much as we can.
Okay, the
Logic.
same understanding, therefore, and indeed by the same means of the very same action.
But for this paragraph, I don't even know if that's like super relevant because in the beginning he's just saying that the what gives unity to judgments is the same thing that gives unity to representations and an intuition, and this thing that does both of those things is called the pure concept of the understanding. So I think he's just elaborating on the third step.
Yeah, in general, yes, okay. So I don't know that this paragraph has actually told us much.
Well, this is the first part, and then it says the same. So well, the pure concept of understanding. So that's like the new thing.
No, we already did
Well,
that.
okay. Yes, in the last paragraph,
we
we
already did the pure concept of the understanding.
Okay.
So I think this might just be a redundant
So the
paragraph.
same.
Again.
Yeah. Okay.
Kant moment.
Yeah. Yes, and then this can never be accomplished by general logic. We were just going over that with
we went
Mark.
over that in the first sentence,
Yeah.
actually.
Okay. Cool. All right. So yeah, bit redundant. All right. But yes, new thing in general is happening around this time. More generally, it's the pure concept of the understanding. So that's important, and we're going to continue that now. Do you want to read the next paragraph?
Yeah, sure. In such a way, there arise exactly as many pure concepts of the understanding, which apply to objects of intuition in general a priori, as there were logical functions of possible judgments in the previous table. For the understanding is completely exhausted by its capacity, entirely measured by these functions. Following Aristotle, we shall call these concepts categories, for our aim is basically identical with his, although very distant from it in execution. So, since concepts are always ordered under a judgment, relative to a judgment, it would follow necessarily that all of our concepts, our categories, right,
Are related to the judgment.
are related to a judgment.
So yes, you'll notice that these pretty much mirror the in terms of like correspondence. Well, no, I won't say mirror. I'll just say they correspond directly to the previous table, which goes quantity, quality, relation, modality. That now we have of quantity, of quality, of relation, of modality. So these are concepts of judgments. And so, for example, we have like unity of quantity, because quantity is a type of judgment, and these are concepts of that judgment.
Yeah, the only thing that seems odd to me is unity, plurality, totality. It would seem that unity relates to the singular judgment, and totality would relate to the universal judgment. But it's given in the reverse order of that. So if you flip here,
Maybe.
see unity, plurality,
Yes.
totality, universal, particular, singular.
In relation to the last table.
Yeah,
Okay.
that just seems odd in relation to the last table. And I'm not sure I understand why
So
that would be.
unity,
Right, totality would seem to apply to the totality of all.
so like
all things in the category,
universality. Yeah.
which would be universal, but it's given in such an order that it suggests it's connected to the singular, and the unity, which I would think is connected to the singular,
Uh-huh.
seems to be connected to universal. That's just strange.
Yeah, that is strange. He might explain it. I mean, we have to. He will. I believe he will go on to explain this table. Like
The other ones are not do not have this issue. Although inherence and subsistence relation to the categorical is also, it's not. It's just weird.
Yeah.
I just don't see the connection there. Causality and dependence, cause and effect to hypothetical, easy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If this, then this, cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, easy. Community, i.e. this idea that all options are exhausted, either it's alive or it's not, right? That's a disjunction. Well, the community of all things include the community of living and non-things. So that's the reciprocal. Okay, that makes sense. But inherence and subsistence relation to categorical judgment.
What's on now? Okay, so yes, we have this table.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how the categorical judgment relates to inherence and subsistence. The other ones are intuitive.
Yes. Cool. So let's see if we can figure that out. I guess we can.
Sure.
All right. So moving on. Now this is the listing of all original pure concepts of synthesis that the understanding contains in itself a priori, and on account of which it is only a pure understanding. For by these concepts alone it can understand something in the manifold of intuition, like think of an object for it. This division is systematically generated from a common principle, namely the faculty for judging, which is the same as the faculty for thinking, and has not arisen rhapsodically, not seen that before, from a haphazard search for pure concepts of completeness.
Perchance.
Of the you can't just say rhapsodically. Of the completeness of which one could never be certain, since one would only infer it through induction without reflecting that in this way one would never see why just these and not other concepts should inhabit the pure understanding.
I just want to pause because that was so chaotic, but I understood it completely because we've already gone over this.
Yeah,
this is just what
he's
said
just
earlier
repeating about the. You need to make sure.
You need to make sure that you're complete and systematic, and you can't do it by
induction,
or looking at experience. You have to find a pure root. You have to do some foundations.
Which is unity. Right,
Right.
He said, which is interesting enough. His history of philosophy moment. Lots of post-Kantians were like, "No, that's not good. You need to derive them better,
True.
More fundamentally." Than
Well,
just
I think
unity.
you do need to derive them better because he just says these are all the possible judgments.
Yes. So here's the thing. So this is new to me in the Kant study. At least it's made explicit to me in the Kant study. It's that unity is what is the kind of mode of deduction, if that's what you want to say.
Yes.
But the post-Kantians are like, no. You need you because I guess unity, right, is kind of is this the critique maybe? I'm trying to find where
unity,
it's assumed. So you're kind of assuming your own.
Okay, that does make sense. Unity is a category.
I don't know if that's all of the post-Kantians critique.
So how could the other categories all be a kind of unity?
If the unity is already assumed.
If unity itself is already assumed by the, well...
I think that maybe that is because Fichte talked a lot about unity.
Okay, but maybe unity is just simply the first moment, and all the other 12 moments are derived from unity in some other way.
That's what Dr. Lee had said, and I didn't understand that a lot, but it makes sense. Yeah.
Which is why I guess they're saying that they haven't derived the categories, because the task is to say, okay, we have unity, right? How from unity do we get all these other categories?
Yes, I think that's what it is.
Okay, yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out as an interesting...
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, cool. I just wanted to take a moment to understand that, because I don't think I fully ever... So cool. That clicks and explains why the post-Kantians felt there was work needed in logic. Because, as I'll continue reading, Kant says, Aristotle's search for these fundamental concepts was an effort worthy of an acute man. of a cute man. A little gay joke there. Yes.
And a cute man. Not a cute little Aristotle.
Kawaii. But since he had no principle, he rounded them up.
Slavery is natural, uwu. kawaii Aristotle. Like,
Women have missing teeth.
women have fewer teeth.
So cute. But since he had no principle, he rounded them up as he stumbled upon them, and he first got up a list of 10 of them, which he called categories, predicaments. Subsequently, he believed that he had found 5 more of them, which he added under the name of post-predicaments. But his table still had holes. Further, it also included several modi of pure sensibility, Latin shit,
Situs, as well as primus and simuli.
as well as empirical ones, modus, which do not belong in this
So
ancestral
hold on. He
registry.
gives. There's a list. There's an E for the footnote to explain that. That is the concepts of when, where, and position,
Oh, okay.
and the relations of priority and simultaneity.
Oh,
And
so like
then,
time and space.
as well as an empirical one.
Modus,
or motion.
which is motion. Okay. So we have basically the pure intuition, space and time, right? Where one position, space, and relation of priority and simultaneity, so like time. And then motion, which is an empirical phenomenon, at least how Aristotle was doing it. So yes, so he says these are categories, but Kant says no, you can't do that because obviously for Kant, right, you can't mix up the functions of sensibility and understanding. You have to keep them separated, at least, before synthesis happens. So so he's saying that's Aristotle's mistake. Which he says here, which do not belong in this ancestral registry of the understanding, right? Because those are things of sensibility. Derivative concepts were also included among the primary ones, actio and passio, which is action and passion, and several of the latter were entirely missing. So this is kind of an example of what Kant is saying, right? You can't just try to inductively do it, because not only will you miss some, like Kant says, that has holes, and even in there he says several latter were entirely missing, but also you might end up, if you're really not careful, confusing the functions of the understanding and of sensibility. But he still did think that the fundamental concepts was an effort worthy of an acute man, because Kant thinks that
Well, it's the first time that's even spelled out at all.
Yes.
Kind of,
So he's kind of saying historically
the first attempt ever
Yeah.
at giving us categories of judgment.
So that's, and the fact that they align pretty well with what Kant thinks is, like the reality of the situation in terms of these categories. That's pretty good. But the post-Kant, what we were just talking about before, it kind of seems to rely on unity, which is what we were talking about before this table was even brought up, and that's a little strange, because how did we get these other things out of unity? That's not really said, so you need to derive them better, I guess. Even so Kant himself kind of has an Aristotle moment where he kind of just is like, nope, this is good, don't need to derive further.
I mean, again, he just says if we abstract from all content of judgment in general and attend only to the mere form of understanding, we find that the function of thinking can be brought under 4 titles, each of which contains itself in 3 moments.
Yeah.
They can be suitably represented in this following table.
So he literally just said, attend to your faculties, and post-Kantians, and maybe you as well, watching, reading this, whatever, is also going to say, no, we need to derive these better. We can't just merely attend to the faculties. So that's a whole interesting thing there for the critique of Kant as well, just while we're on that spot. Okay. So that's that. I think we kind of broke that down pretty good along the way. So unless there are any questions, maybe we could probably just move on to the next paragraph.
Yeah, I think we should check in with Mark. Any questions?
Yeah, true.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, no questions.
Cool.
Good.
All right. You want to read the next one?
All right. For the sake of the primary concepts, it is still necessary to remark that the categories, as the true ancestral concepts of the pure understanding, also have their pure derivative concepts, which could by no means be passed over in a complete system of transcendental philosophy, but with the mere mention of which can be satisfied in a merely critical essay.
So this is also post-Kantians are like, no, they actually can be.
Well, he says that a complete system of transcendental philosophy would go into these derivative concepts. He just says that I'm not doing that here.
Oh, I thought he.
He's just saying I'm not going to do that.
Oh, I thought he was saying by no means passed over. No, he's saying it can't be passed over.
No, he's saying which could by no means be
Oh,
passed over
I was confusing the
in a
order of the
complete
God
system
dyslexia moment. Okay,
of
never mind.
Transcendental philosophy.
You're right.
Bro, it's not dyslexia. You're reading Kant.
That's true. That is true. Damn, I got conted.
Like, this is nightmare reading. This is nightmare difficulty reading. That's all there is to it.
All right.
Anyway, he's just saying there's derivative concepts, refuses to elaborate.
Yeah. He is. Yeah.
Let me be allowed to call these. Oh, and then he elaborates.
Man, you can elaborate or not? What the fuck?
Refuses to elaborate.
Elaborate! Goodness gracious. What a journey.
Okay, sure. Let me be. I feel like Kant is just the exact inverse of a Giga Chad, honestly. Let me be allowed. I can't even.
No, he is a Chad. Let me be allowed.
I can't. Okay. I literally can't.
Okay.
Get it? Okay.
Yeah, I literally can't.
Wow,
Low
that's-
effort.
That joke was so unfunny, now I can read. Let me.
Realizing that the joke is unfunny is quite funny.
Okay.
Alright.
All right. Let me be allowed to call. Matt, you go. You go.
Let me be allowed to call these pure but derivative concepts the predictables, a pure understanding.
Sorry, guys.
In contrast to the predicaments, if one has the original and primitive concepts, the derivative and subalternate ones can easily be added, and the family tree of pure understanding fully illustrated. Since I am concerned here, not with completeness of the system, but rather only with the principle. For a system, I reserve this supplementation for another job. But one could readily reach this aim if one took the ontological textbooks in hand and, e.g., under the category of causality, subordinated the
The predictables? Predicable. Oh,
yes, the
things which
Aristotelian.
are, things you could put under a predicate.
Yes.
Predicables.
Oh, predicables. Okay, cool. Of force, action, and passion. Under that of community, those of presence and resistance. Sorry, the way it's captured, so weird to read that. Under the predicament of modality, those of generation, corruption, alteration, and so on. The categories combined, either with the modus of sensibility or with the other, yield a great multitude of derivative a priori concepts to take note of which, and as far as possible, completely catalog would be a useful and not unpleasant, but here dispensable effort. So he's basically just saying, so yeah, he's like, I'm not going to go fully into them, but let me give you a few examples of how this might be done, of taking the derivative concepts of the what he calls the ancestral concepts. So the true ancestral concepts are, from what I understand, these just in the table. And then the derivative concepts are things that Aristotle found, which have to do with not pure understanding, but have to do with already combined things. And then you can organize those predicables under certain ones. So it's not like Aristotle said where these are all equal. There's like for Kant, there's like an order to them, and he's laying out that order in that paragraph. I think that's really all that is there, right?
Well, he's suggesting work for someone else to do.
Well, yes. If you wanted to completely fill that out.
If you want to,
Which, I mean, I would be very surprised if nobody has done that yet, but
Sure.
if you want to do it, go ahead. I'm not going to, probably.
I don't even know what a single example of these derivative concepts could possibly be.
No, he gives them right here. The things that...
Well, I don't know how those generate. Like, I don't know why those are examples.
Oh.
Like,
Well-
why are action and passion derived? Like, how do those derive from any of these categories?
So which ones is it under? Action and passion. That's under causality.
Okay.
I don't know why. Passion is under I mean, I guess couldn't most shit be under causality?
'Cause
Well, that's what
cause and effect-
Schopenhauer will go on to
'cause
argue.
Cause and effect, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be an agent, namely the cause, and a patient, namely the effect.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes some sense. Cool.
But I guess he doesn't go on to explain that. He kind of
No,
just assumes
yeah,
that's
yeah.
obvious.
Okay.
And does that with all these other examples.
I deliberately spare myself the definitions of these categories in this treatise, although I should like to be in possession of them. In the sequel, I will analyze these concepts to the degree that is sufficient in relation to the doctrine of method I am working up. In a system of pure reason, one could rightly demand these of me. But here, they would only distract us from the chief point of the investigation by arousing doubts and objections that can well be referred to another occasion without detracting from our essential aim. In any case, from the little that I have here adduced, it becomes clear that a complete lexicon with all the requisite definitions should not only be possible, but even easy to produce. The headings already exist, it is merely necessary to fill them out. And a systematic topic, such as the present one, will make it easy not to miss the place where every concept properly belongs, and at the same time will make it easy to notice that any is still empty.
Cool. So Kant's like, I just made it easy for you to make this fucking table. Go make the table, but I'm not going to because that'll be too distracting from the chief point. Even though at other places in this work, he doesn't mind distracting from the chief point quite a bit, but he's just choosing to refuse to elaborate.
Not this time.
Yeah.
Elaborates,
character
refuses to
development in the middle of this book.
Yeah. Elaborates.
Kant gets
elaborates. On refusal to elaborate.
So he's actually refusing to elaborate because we're on to a new section.
Refuses to elaborate on why he won't elaborate on his elaborates on
Which
why
is
he
an
refuses to
elaboration,
elaborate on his
yeah.
elaboration.
God, all right.
Okay.
Reading Kant is such a joy.
Well, the second time around with good company, it's much more fun than it was the first time around alone.
I hope you feel the same. All right. Did you just read this last?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so now on to the next section, 711. Section, please no, you two don't copyright. Section 11. Do we want to go on to this in this study? Because this is a bit of a journey.
What time is it?
It's 4:47. We have less than an hour left, and this does seem like it'll take a while.
I mean,
We go
it's
up to
actually
section-
less than it seems. It's 1, 2, 3 full pages, and then
Okay.
a half a page.
Yeah, so like 3.5.
Basically. So it's 3.5 pages.
Okay, do we just want to...
I
Run through it then.
kind of like to power through.
All
I
right.
doubt they'll kick us out.
No, I know, but I just didn't know generally how we felt about it.
How do you feel, Mark?
Would you like
Yeah,
to...
I feel like it's a lot to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
already,
That's why I don't know
I
if we
mean,
want to like
I
stop it here and continue ponder, make sure digest this a bit, and come back next time, or do we want to just power through the rest of this chapter?
for me, I think the first option would be better.
Okay.
All right.
So we can. Do you want to?
But I mean, if you guys want to continue, as long as
I'm kind of
You're
indifferent.
you're making a recording, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this is pretty
Yeah, so-
long for anyone who wants to watch it.
that's probably true too. Yeah.
So
Maybe we'll cut it here.
We can cut it here.
Cool. And then we'll go on to sections 11. We'll just probably finish the chapter next time.
Yeah,
Sections 11 and 12.
which will
Okay.
be a shorter one
Yeah.
relatively.
Section 10, pretty beefy.
Okay. Yep. That sounds
Cool.
good.
All right. Well, yeah. So we'll cut this session off here. This is more of the length of the more introductory ones compared to like the hour plus of the more recent editions. So
Yeah.
maybe this is a nice return to form in that sense. And next time will also probably be shorter. Cool. All right. Well, that sounds good. Thanks for sticking around to us with this pretty, like I just said, pretty beefy. I tend to describe things like that
Yeah.
are like this, but yeah, we got through another table base. So hopefully that makes sense. Any questions, obviously leave them in the comments or other ways. And yeah, maybe we'll ask Dr. Lee about.
Yeah, for next time, see if you can contemplate why is there this extra
Yeah,
middle
extra
step?
fucking step.
Like, what does
Like
it do?
why don't we just put it? Why isn't the concept already there once we combine the intuitions? Why do we have to have this
Why
extra
is that
step?
not a unity?
Yeah, why is that already not a unity?
What does it? Is the sensibility do it? If the sensibility does it,
That's
how's
sus,
it
man.
active?
Yeah.
If the understanding does it, why is it not according to a concept?
Yeah, this is actually something Schopenhauer, I think, pointed out, had a pretty big issue with.
Is it?
Yeah, I was researching this a bit
just
over winter
doesn't
break for my
make-
grad school
It
paper.
just
Yeah,
comes out of nowhere.
it does. Although it's interesting to see it in more detail. He kind of just like mentioned it, and I like didn't see the full extent of the thing until now. So yeah, that's a pretty damning criticism. Ponder that. I'll probably ask
It
Dr.
doesn't
Lee.
really hurt his system. Like, if you took it out, what would happen?
I don't know. I guess
I don't
we'll
think
I guess we'll see.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, well, it's more of the implication of like the understanding has a much bigger role than sensibility, despite Kant claiming they're equal. It's kind of like this is some evidence. It's not like a straight up like
Possibly.
apodictic
Okay.
proof or anything, but it's more just like, hey man, you're saying these are equal, but clearly the understanding has this huge ass role. Or if not, like you said, the other implication is that then the sensibility has an active role, which is kind of fundamentally wrong in Kant as well. So
yeah.
it's more of just like attacking sensibility in general, saying it's either
Sure.
smaller than you say or it does something else that you don't say. So,
Right.
so that's the interesting thing to think about. That's kind of the line of thinking Schopenhauer went down, if I'm not misremembering that, if I'm understanding everything correctly.
So we'll work out the consequences if this middle step, this synthesis in the imagination.
Yeah, kind of a sus thing to put in there, but it has some interesting implications. So, yeah, that's that. Anything else to say? We can end this, and we'll continue next time with section 11. Cool. All right. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you then.
Good.